Thank you for coming today. I'm attorney Gloria Allred, and I'll be making a statement, and then my client, Alicia Arden, will come to the microphone to make her statement. Then I'll be happy to answer any questions. She will not be answering any questions. Today we are here on the one-year anniversary of the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein. Mr. Epstein is alleged to have sexually abused hundreds of girls and women, young women, dating back to 1994 or earlier, and perhaps continuing until his arrest on July 6, 2019, 1 year ago. In fact, Ghislaine Maxwell was just indicted last week on allegations that, quote, from at least in or about 1994 up to and including at least in or about 1997, Maxwell assisted, facilitated, and contributed to Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls, end quote. That's from the indictment. In 1997, my client, Alicia Arden, a model, was sexually assaulted and battered by Jeffrey Epstein at the Shutters on the Beach Hotel in Santa Monica. She filed a police report with the Santa Monica Police Department, but it appears that little or no investigation was ever done, because after the police report was filed, Ms. Arden was never contacted by the police or by any prosecutor. Had Jeffrey Epstein been investigated, and had he been prosecuted and convicted, perhaps countless victims would have been spared from the sexual assaults and rapes that they were forced to suffer. Today, I am delivering a letter to the LA County District Attorney and the Santa Monica City Attorney, actually the Santa Monica Police Chief, demanding an investigation into why Ms. Arden's report to the police in 1997 appears to have been ignored. It took courage for Alicia to file the report, but then it appears that law enforcement failed to pursue it. Alicia may be the first victim of Jeffrey Epstein who has written evidence that she did file a police report alleging sexual abuse by Epstein in the 1990s. The failure of law enforcement to follow up on her report is inexcusable, and Alicia deserves answers. The women and girls who were also victimized as a result of the failure of law enforcement to do their job also deserve to know the truth about why Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to victimize Alicia without suffering any legal consequences. Was there a failure to investigate Jeffrey Epstein because he was rich and powerful and well-connected? Or were there other reasons? Was the failure to do any meaningful investigation because of rape myths, such as the common myth that if a woman goes to a man's hotel room, she must have wanted to be sexually assaulted? Alicia and the public have a right to know, and we look forward to the response of law enforcement. And after Alicia speaks, we will show you a large copy of the police report and also a photo of what she looked like on or about 1997, 1998. Thank you.
I met Jeffrey Epstein in 1997. My friend worked in finance and saw Epstein during a visit he made to the hotel in Beverly Hills. And Epstein asked my friend whether she wanted to be a model for Victoria's Secrets. She said no, she wasn't a model, but suggested you should meet my friend Alicia because she is a model. And she would love to be in Victoria's Secrets. Epstein said, great, have her call me. along with anyone else that you know who wants to be a Victoria's Secrets model. My friend shared this news with me and gave me Epstein's number, so I called him when he got back to New York. I sent Epstein's home in New York my portfolio and all of my pictures. He loved them. He called me directly after receiving them, and he told me that his assistant would set up a meeting. A few days later, Epstein's assistant, whose name was Kimberly, called me and said Epstein was at the Shutters Hotel in Santa Monica, California. She said that I could meet with Epstein either in the afternoon or in the evening. So I picked the afternoon because I thought I would feel safer. I knocked on Epstein's door at Shutters, and I went into his hotel room. He was wearing a USA sweatshirt, black sweatpants, and he was barefoot. So he took my portfolio, looked at my photographs. I'd already sent them to him earlier. He liked my pictures. But he said, "Why don't you look like these photographs?" I told him that I photograph differently all the time and modeled in different contexts. Epstein told me that he wanted to see my body up close. He had me come a little closer to him. Then he started touching my hips, my buttocks, and then he lifted up my shirt. I was in a skirt, and he was touching my bare skin. I started to feel scared, and I began to cry. I never will forget what he told me while I came next to him. He said the words, "Let me manhandle you," because nobody had ever said that to me since then or before. He said, "Let me manhandle you." Epstein's phone rang as I was crying, and he answered. And he said to the person on the phone, "I have this beautiful girl in front of me, and she's very upset." By that point, my skirt was coming down, and he was pulling my skirt over my head, and I was feeling terrified. When he seemed distracted on the phone, I pulled my clothes back on, I grabbed my portfolio, and then I prepared to leave the room. And as I did, he put $100 on the table. I said, "Jeffrey, I'm not a prostitute. I want to be in the Victoria's Secrets catalog." And he responded, "Let me see what I can do." So I left the money in the hotel room and I walked out. And when I left the room, I immediately called my friend and I told her what happened. My friend did not answer the phone. So I left messages for her as I was walking down the hallway to valet parking. And I soon realized that Epstein followed me from the hotel room out to valet parking. he handed me the money again. I ended up taking it because I was short on money at the time. I needed the money to reimburse me for gas, to get in and out of the hotel, for valet parking. And I was actually on my way that day to file a financial aid application for college. I felt safer taking the money around people in valet parking. And I remained very upset about all of the touching that went on in his hotel room. And after the incident, I felt violated and mistreated. So instead of going to my college, I went straight to the police department in Santa Monica to file a report. And at the police department, officers told me that I was very pretty. They said that I went up to the hotel room willingly and that I intimidate men because of my appearance. And I told the police that I did not ask or give permission to be touched or to have Epstein start taking my clothes off. I thought I was going to a legitimate audition for Victoria's Secrets. And he took advantage of me. And the police told me that I should think before doing anything. So I was upset about my encounter with the police as well, and the refusal to take my complaint seriously. I felt violated all over again. I continued to think about the visit with Epstein. I knew that what he did was wrong, and I worried for myself and other women. I went back to the police 1 week later, and I insisted on filing a formal report. I really hoped when I went back that a woman would be there to assist me, but only men took my statement. The process took 2.5 hours. But I stayed and I filed my report. I had always thought that when you reported something to the police, they would at least call you back. I knew that Jeffrey Epstein traveled to other cities, and I gave the police Epstein's home number and work number in New York. I feared that he could make appointments in other places and abuse other women like he had abused me. Despite my efforts, nobody ever called me. There was never any follow-ups, and it really kind of seemed like my complaint was kind of ignored.
No. Okay, hold on. Let's get your mask. This is a photo of Alicia Arden on or about either 1997, 1998. So this is what she looked like at the time. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Thank you. Okay. And I've given each of you in the press packet this photo. Okay. So you have that. Okay. Okay. Sorry, that's it. Can't hear you.
Is it from 1997, did you say?
Yeah, 1997, 1998. Not sure which.
Can you say how old she is?
Pardon me?
Do you know how old she is in the photo?
Where was she?
How old?
Oh, how old was she in the photo?
Oh, like 24 or 5.
24 or 25, she said, something
And
like that.
again, was her in 97?
Pardon me? It was the police report's 1997, and the picture's 1997 or 1998. So it's on or about. Also, now, next, we'll show you the police report. You can stand right here. So, this is the police report. You can note that it says sexual battery, and that it was and where it took place, 1 Pico Boulevard, which is the address of Shutters on the Beach in Santa Monica. The date and time of the assault was May 12th, which is there. And it also shows the date and time of the report to the police, which was approximately a week later, as she indicated, May 20th. In addition, it says that she is the reporting party, and it gives, it's a male suspect, and it also says what he was wearing at the time. And there's his name, Esptein Jeffrey, and that he was barefoot at the time, as she indicated. It also describes the suspect's vehicle as being a large 4-door Mercedes, black Mercedes. It also indicates that he was posing as representing Victoria's Secret, and it says gropes during interview with model. Gropes is not a legal term. Sexual battery is, which groping a woman's breast or genital area, that would be a sexual battery. In addition, it says that it was in a hotel room, and the type of weapon that was used were his hands. Further, it says that it has the name of the officer who took the report and the officer's number, serial number, so he can be identified. And then we have the report as she articulated it to the police officer who took the report. And it also indicates that she says that she had not filed a report on May 13th, 97, but wished to do so now. And it continues with her account of what happened in the hotel room, which is consistent with what she just told you. And it also indicates when you read down that I'll just read the last part, that at one point Epstein asked her to undress the second time. He actually assisted her by pulling her blouse up and pulling her skirt up and groping her buttocks while saying, "Let me manhandle you for a second." And it does talk about her resisting. And that she felt that he was asking her to act in an unprofessional manner for a model. Thank you. And finally, you do have a copy of the entire police report, which I provided. And in addition, I have provided you with a copy of the letter which will be delivered today to Jackie Lacey, the LA County District Attorney, asking her to investigate, and also to the police chief. And so the letter says the following, and it's the same letter to both, so I'll just read one. This is to the police chief. Dear Chief Renaud, I represent Ms. Alicia Arden, one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. In 1997, Ms. Arden was sexually assaulted and battered by Jeffrey Epstein at the Shutters Hotel in Santa Monica. She filed a police report against Mr. Epstein with the Santa Monica Police Department on May 20th, 1997, report number 97-38046, a copy of which is attached here too. Thereafter, Ms. Arden was never contacted by the police nor by any prosecutor. Ms. Arden was never even advised whether or not any investigation by the Santa Monica Police had been conducted. It should be noted that Ms. Arden may have been the first Epstein victim who has written evidence of filing a police report alleging sexual abuse against him. I'm hereby requesting that you open an investigation as to what, if any, police investigation was conducted in reference to Ms. Arden's complaint against Jeffrey Epstein, as our client deserves to know what action, if any, was taken by the police after she filed her crime report. Your immediate attention and response is appreciated. Very truly yours, Gloria Allred. So that will go to both of them. And now we'll be very happy, I'll be happy to take any questions.
I mean, if in fact there was no real investigation, what then?
Well, we'd like to know first what happened. Was there an investigation? Was there not an investigation? And if there was not an investigation, why wasn't there an investigation? As I said, was it because he was rich, powerful, famous, and connected to powerful people? Was it because of a rape myth? A rape myth is, for example, if you go to a man's hotel room, if a woman goes there, she must have wanted or should have expected to be sexually assaulted or raped, which of course is a myth and not the reality. There are women who go to hotel rooms, and as a matter of law, it doesn't mean they're agreeing to sexual assault. And we saw that because I represented 3 witnesses, one of whom was a victim in the Harvey Weinstein case. And she actually went to his home, my client, and or to his apartment. And still he was convicted of criminal sexual assault. Take the Mike Tyson case. There, the victim, whom I did not represent, went to Mike Tyson's hotel room. He was still convicted of rape. So this is a rape myth, though, that some police departments are operating on. Oh, well then, she must have expected it or wanted it. And we have to get rid of the rape myths. There was actually an expert who testified both in the Bill Cosby case and the same expert, Harvey Weinstein criminal case, about rape myths. That was Dr. Ziv. So what next was your question. Let's wait and see what they say were the reasons. And obviously he cannot be prosecuted because he's now deceased. Whether that's as a result of suicide or homicide, we don't know yet. No, we know there are conflicting opinions about that, which I won't get into now. But we still have a right to know. Because this is the only police report that we know of publicly, that we have seen to law enforcement. But I don't think that Alicia should have to live with the unanswered question, why not? Why was it apparently disregarded, given no weight, given no credit? Did they interview Mr. Epstein? Did he decline to be interviewed through his attorneys? Did they take his word against hers? I mean, there are all kinds of possibilities. Or did they just not do anything because, after all, it's just a woman and a model who went into a hotel room? And maybe she wasn't considered, or what happened to her, as important, or what happened to her may have not been considered as of much value, as against his denial, if in fact they contacted him and he denied it, and we don't know if he said anything. Any other questions? Yeah.
I don't know if she can say it all, or you can say for her, just learning about Epstein over the years after her encounter with him. How did that make her feel? Was there outrage that
She feels that had they thoroughly investigated, had they prosecuted, had they convicted him, had he been sentenced, maybe other women and young girls would have been spared from being victimized sexually and sex trafficked, in the case of some of them, by Jeffrey Epstein. So Alicia is not only expressing concern about herself and that her case was not prosecuted, but she feels that it could have possibly spared others. Maybe Mr. Epstein would have taken it more seriously, the fact that there are criminal consequences if you sexually assault a woman or sexually batter her. Maybe it would have been a teaching moment for him. Maybe, since criminal trials are public, the word would have gone out about Jeffrey Epstein. Perhaps others then would have been warned, be careful, don't be around this man. He is someone who's been convicted of sexual battery, assaulting a woman, a model. And there are many models who allege that they were assaulted by Mr. Epstein. As I say, I represent 16 accusers of Jeffrey Epstein. Some are models, some are not. Some are underage victims, which Alicia was not, but still it was important what happened to her. And so I'm representing them, some in litigation in New York, and many in the new claims process that has been open now, just recently, for victims where they confidentially can assert a claim, and if they are awarded any compensation, it comes from the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. And it's all confidential, and some of them are contacting now and have contacted me recently because they don't want to be public, but they do want to make sure that they receive compensation for their therapy bills, for their doctor bills, for their pain and suffering, perhaps for their lost wages. And they have a right to attempt to make his estate accountable, and receive that type of justice for themselves. It's not complete justice. We would have liked him to be alive, to be prosecuted, so many of his victims could have confronted him in the courtroom in federal court in New York. Didn't happen. But it's one form of accountability, and I'm glad that there is now a process that we can participate in and assist our clients in receiving at least some form of justice. Many of my clients have spoken to law enforcement. Alicia is one of them, and I'm very proud of her that she did. And I'm not only talking about the Santa Monica Police Department. I'm talking about law enforcement for the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, who have been investigating Mr. Epstein, Ms. Maxwell, and perhaps others. It's for them to say who else they're investigating on the issue of conspiring to sex traffic underage girls and recruit, assist, and groom them to be sexually victimized. Any other questions?
Did Alicia have any contact with Esptein after this encounter?
No, she had no contact with Jeffrey Epstein after the encounter.
Any contact ever with Ghislaine?
I will say only this. The person that she names as Kimberly, as the person who contacted her to make the appointment, after she did speak to Jeffrey Epstein himself on the phone in reference to meeting with him prior to the assault, she doesn't know if that person's name, Kimberly, was really that person's name, or whether it was another woman who just gave the name Kimberly. So she reported to the police, as she should have, that was the right thing to do, that the person said her name was Kimberly. Was it someone else whose name was not Kimberly but was giving that name? We don't know. Because we don't know if they investigated that. Yes?
You've been outspoken on Prince Andrew in the past, bearing in mind what happened last week with Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest.
Can't hear you too well, sorry.
What's your message to Prince Andrew after Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest?
My message to Prince Andrew is that Ms. Maxwell is now in the custody of law enforcement. Matter of fact, she has a bail hearing reportedly set for Friday in New York. She could choose, rather than fighting these charges and indicating that she's not guilty, she could decide that she wishes to cooperate, become a cooperator with the prosecutors in the Justice Department in exchange for a plea to a lesser charge or having all charges dismissed. But we don't know if she would do that, and we don't know if the Justice Department would even offer her a plea. My point is this: she knows quite a bit about the powerful men who were close to Jeffrey Epstein and to the women and girls that he seemed to, on a very frequent basis, have at his homes. As a matter of fact, Ms. Maxwell is the one who introduced Prince Andrew to Jeffrey Epstein. And we know that Ms. Maxwell, in the indictment last week, is charged with sex trafficking of underage girls, not only to Mr. Epstein's home in Manhattan, but also to her home in London. And it appears that Prince Andrew visited Ms. Maxwell's home in London. There's an allegation that he victimized a girl there, a young girl there, sexually. Ms. Maxwell knew all of the powerful men who partied with or flew on the so-called Lolita Express, Epstein's private jet, with him to his island, Little St. James, and to other locations, New Mexico Ranch, and elsewhere. Palm Beach, Florida was another location mentioned in the indictment of Ms. Maxwell. But to answer your question, if I were Prince Andrew, I would want to speak to the prosecutors before Ms. Maxwell speaks to the prosecutors. And the clock is ticking. She could decide to speak to them at any time. I don't know if she will, don't know if she won't. Right now, she's claiming that she's not guilty. Why is Prince Andrew still delaying? Only he can answer that. Why is he giving excuses, attempted justifications? I don't know. But he didn't seem to have any problem sitting there with the BBC for 1 hour to give the interview that he gave, for which he was widely criticized after. But again, he didn't have to do that interview under oath because it's just a television interview. Hopefully he did. Don't know. If he speaks to law enforcement in the United States, meaning the FBI, and he could also speak to the FBI or prosecutors in the UK, in London, it's easily arranged, he does have a legal duty to tell the truth. Now, if he fears that that would potentially incriminate him, not saying it would, he can say, I decline to answer. On that basis, it would tend to incriminate me. But if he does appear for an interview, he really should answer any and all questions. And he shouldn't try to say, well, he doesn't really know anything. Not saying he is saying that. He has said he's done nothing wrong. Well, if he's done nothing wrong, well, then step up and answer the questions and give an interview. He's portraying himself as a victim, saying that his attorneys contacted the prosecutors, they're not contacting him. Come on, okay. Audrey Strauss, the acting U.S. attorney who replaced Jeffrey Berman, who was the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, indicated just a few days ago when she did the press conference about the indictment of Ms. Maxwell that she would like to be able to hear from Prince Andrew, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is the essence of it, have law enforcement ask him questions and he would answer them. So as I say, does he need a gold-plated invitation delivered by footmen who bow or curtsy to him in order to sit there with prosecutors? Many of my clients didn't need that, okay? Alicia Arden absolutely was ready to speak with the law enforcement in New York, and she did that. And she flew there to do that. Was it convenient for her to get in a plane and go? Probably not, but she did. Okay, so he needs to do this. Because once Ms. Maxwell speaks, and if she does speak about Prince Andrew, and if she is willing to answer questions, no doubt she must speak about Prince Andrew and anything that she might have observed that he did or didn't do or was with or wasn't with the people who were in any of his residences, the women or girls. So I would suggest that it would be better if he provided his answers first. And, you know, it would be really great if he wouldn't just think about himself and he would think about the victims. The victims deserve the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And this delaying is just like a water torture test for them. Every day there's the drip, drip, drip. Will he answer the questions of law enforcement? Will he not? Why not? When? His blaming law enforcement for not contacting. They're saying they would like to interview him. This is really unacceptable. And if his lawyers are having trouble contacting the prosecutors, which I doubt, I'll be happy to facilitate the introduction and and get an answer. I don't think they need me to do that. It's ridiculous. But I'll do it if that's all they need is to get that phone call. I'll call the prosecutors myself and say they would like to speak to you. He will be willing to sit for an interview, can make it on that date. Here are the names of the attorneys, which I'm sure they have, and they're waiting for you to call. Will you call today, tomorrow? I'll be happy to give them the message since they say they're having trouble contacting you, which is frankly really hard for me to believe, but I'll try to keep an open mind. Anything else?
Hey, Gloria, is Alicia a part of the claims process with the Epstein estate?
Pardon me?
Is Alicia a part of the claim process as well?
The claims process. I don't have permission to disclose that at this time. But I will say on this claims process, I am representing individuals not only from the United States, but also from some other countries, because it's all going to be done on Zoom. And so we will brief for our clients, and they will have an opportunity to speak to the claims administrators on Zoom at a certain date and time, and we'll be with them. And then the claims administrators decide on the award based on various criteria.